Welcome to the Video Education Center. In our session today, we're going to be talking about image capture protocol. In this case here is specific to our 2D panorama image. Now keep in mind that what we talk about here as far as positioning for a panorama image is fairly universal throughout our entire product line, whether it be the Insight, the PAX-I, the green system, and so on. These protocols can be applied across the board to ensure we get consistent output from your device. First things first, in terms of our image capture, we're going to already assume that you've accessed the image capture software, chosen your image type, got the device into the confirm mode where the lights are projecting on the machine itself to do your patient positioning. From here, let's go through how we want to set the machine up here so that way we get our adequate image every time. So first off, I would get in the habit of bringing the machine up a little bit higher than where it needs to be. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, I want to have it up a little bit higher because what I want to avoid the patient to do is bump into the components of the device as they enter the imaging system itself. Number two, by having it up a little bit higher, subconsciously the patient stands straighter for me there as well. Because so often when I go into an office, they have the imaging system down too low, the patient kind of compresses themselves and you have an uphill battle getting positioned properly. Okay? Bring it up a little bit higher, maybe an inch higher than where it needs to be, and bringing it down accordingly. Now, as far as having the patient stand in the device, there are three things I want to identify: where the hands need to be, where the feet need to be, as well as when the mouth needs to be as well. Okay, so let's start with the hands here. Obviously, as you look at the handlebar, there's an angled part to it. There's also a flat bottom part here as well. What I tried to do is this. Try and get the hands on the very bottom of the bar, palms facing up towards the ceiling. That's going to achieve two things for me. Number one, it brings my shoulders in towards my body here, or my elbows in towards my body, and it cuts down on lateral movement. And number two, putting my hands on the very bottom of the bar, it forces my shoulders low and out of the way as well, so that less likely to bump into the sensor as it rotates around the patient here. Some of the things I often see though, with the hands up too high, where the shoulders come up high, they can then kind of chicken wing and kind of move back and forth here. The big thing we want to strive for is stability during our image capture itself. So hands on the very bottom of the bar, palm facing up towards the ceiling. Number two, I want to identify now where the feet are going to be. As a general rule, I'll try to use the right-hand side of the column to align the heels of the feet themselves. In this case here, I happen to have a seam down there on the carpet that I can use then too to align the heels. If you don't have something like that, or the seam on the wood floor and so on, feel free to either take a piece of tape, line it down there, or even get like a silicone or rubber feet, put it down there on the floor as well, and use that as an instructional guide for identifying the feet placement. The reason we want the feet slightly forward or vertical, or about an inch forward or vertical, is to promote the upper part of the body being as close to the device as possible. What that's going to do from an image capture point of view is allow the patient to extend their neck more vertically. The most common thing I see is that the patient is standing too far away from the device and they start leaning forward with their neck, causing compression of the spine here, and you get the washout in the mandible area. So get the feet about an inch forward or vertical. It pushes the upper part of the body closer to the chin rest appliance here and allows the neck to be extended more vertically. Okay? Once they've done all that, what we also want to do then, as far as the feet, is try and keep the feet about shoulder width apart. Because again, the most common thing I see is the feet locked together here. The problem you run into that is the fact that one of the instructions for the patient is to close his or her eyes during image capture. By doing that though, sometimes the equilibrium can feel like you're being off balance there. So standing with your feet shoulder width apart creates more stability for us. Okay, so from here, let's go ahead and migrate up in terms of identifying where the head is going to be using the chin rest here with our bite stick. So as I look at the chin rest appliance, you'll see there's a notch within the bite stick itself. It's absolutely essential that the teeth are in the groove there itself. If they're not, very often what will end up happening, the patient either comes too far forward or too far back, and you start getting blurriness and distortion in the anterior area itself. Okay? So with that being said, let's take a look at the lights here from the front of the system. For our panorama image capture, there are three position lights we're going to be using. The one you see here in the back of my hand is our mid-sagittal light. And that light is going to pass through 2 points in the patient's face, in between the eyebrow, filtering above the upper lip. That's going to do two things for me here as well. Number one, it's going to center the patient's face from left to right. Also, it gets the head level here as well, because if the head is tilted to one side or the other, the light can't go through those 2 points in the patient's face. Also, what I try to avoid doing is using the midline of the nose, because if the nose is crooked, you'll push the patient off to one side or the other, and perhaps maybe a little more controversial, I don't use the midline of the teeth either. If the midline's off, you'll end up pushing the patient off to one side or the other. These 2 points tend to be most consistent among human beings. The next light we're going to take a look at then is projecting on the right-hand side over here, which is my Frankfurt light. That light is going to project on the right-hand side of the patient's face, and it's going to align from the top of the tragus to the orbital rim, about ½ an inch down below the eyelid. The intention for that is to get the chin at the proper angle for us. The last light we're going to be aligning in is our canine light, which you see in the back of my hand here, which is adjusted on the side over here, sliding it forward and backwards to align to the center of the upper left canine tooth itself. Okay? So what I recommend doing when it comes to aligning these lights, do the mid-sagittal light first, Frankfurt light second, canine light third. With that being said, though, have some offices that find it easier to do the Frankfurt light because they're already adjusting the machine up or down. That's fine. You can interchange the mid-sagittal and the Frankfurt light. However, always do the canine light last. If the chin's up too high, the canine light will not line up properly and you start getting distortion within the anterior region of your panorama images. Okay? So that being said, we're ready to do our image capture itself. In the first segment of this video, we talked about the protocol for capturing our panorama image. What we're going to do now is do an actual image capture to do our panorama image. So come on over here and take a quick look, and you'll see I have my patient standing here, and I currently have the imaging system about 1 inch higher than where it needs to be. What I want to do then is identify how I want the patient to access the device itself. Hands, feet, and mouth. So patient, come on forward if you would please here, and go ahead and put your hands on the bottom of the bar here like this, okay? And as far as the heels of the feet are concerned, I want to use the right-hand side of the column here, so line up your feet a little bit further forward to hit my feet, okay? And I want to try to get the upper part of the body as close to the imaging system as possible here. So about 1 inch forward or vertical is how the feet should be aligned there. So I'm going to come back over here again to the front of the patient. You see how the chin rest is about maybe ½ an inch or 1 inch higher than where it needs to be. I'll go ahead and bring it down just a little bit further here. And I'm going to then bring up the bite stick here as I need to, have him put his chin in the chin rest there, and I'll pull down the chin rest here, or the chin bite stick there, to make sure the chin is firm on the chin rest itself. From here, I then wanted to identify the 3 positioning lights here. I have my mid-sagittal light going in between the eyebrow, filtering above the upper lip. Okay? If I need to align it, this is where you're good to instruct the patient what you're going to be doing. So I may need to touch the patient's face, move it left to right, and line it. And be careful not to rotate the patient's face and so on, because we want to keep the face symmetrical in the device at all times. From here, we then have our Frankfurt light, which is then projecting here on the right-hand side of the patient's face. We want this light to go from the top of the tragus to the orbital rim. So I'll press down on the button here to bring down my Frankfurt light. And you see I start from the top of the tragus and then go forward from there. And I do that for this reason here. This tragus becomes basically a pivot point as I bring the machine up or down. That's not going to move. What's going to change, however, though, is the relationship then to the eye orbit here. So right now, if I look, it's about 1 inch below the orbit there itself, or the eyelid. What this is going to do is get the proper chin angle for us. So the next thing we want to do then from here, once I get it aligned properly here, I'll bring light a little bit more here. I'll bring the machine down a little bit. Oops, bring the machine down a little bit like this here. Okay, realign this here again. So now it's the top of the tragus there, and about ½ an inch down below the eyelids. So from a theoretical point of view, this is how that light should be aligned there. Okay, now let's go over here to the side here where I can see the canine light projecting here on the left-hand side of the patient's arch. I'm going to slide this back and forth here until I see it going through the center of the upper left canine tooth, just like that. Now, what I want you to do here is this. When we are assessing this chin angle, the canine light, Frankfurt light, in the beginning, I encourage offices to do each one of these separately. Don't try to necessarily interpret all lights at the same time here. What you also can do, though, is this here. As I mentioned a moment ago, this light here, from a theoretical point of view, is supposed to go from the top of the tragus to the orbital rim. That's supposed to get the proper chin angle to get that 10-degree angle of our occlusal, so we get that natural smiling effect we see on those panorama images there. However, from a reality point of view, that doesn't always work out that well. So what I can do is this. At the same time that I adjust the canine light over here, I'm looking at the patient's occlusal, and what I want to see is a 10-degree angle of my occlusal going up and away from me. So the cusps of my teeth should be higher in the back where the molars are than where the central incisor is. If I see that 10-degree angle, I'm good to go. If the occlusal still looks flat, I'll bring the machine down a little bit further, and then that way I'll get that 10-degree angle I need for my successful panorama image. Once the lights are all projecting properly here, the patient can then be instructed to go ahead and relax your lips like you're sucking on a straw there. You can then close the temporal rods here by pressing the appropriate button for that. And then from here, you can then put the device into our capture mode in one of three ways. Either click on the ready button here on the LCD screen, the white check mark here on the right-hand side, or on the capture software itself. I hit the button here and ready to do our image capture.
Moving into capturing position. Please wait.
It's also helpful to tell the patient that nothing is happening during this time period. It's simply rotating around to get into our capture mode itself. I'll oftentimes stand here until I'm ready to capture my image, and I'll provide instructions then for my patient.
The system is ready to capture an image. Please close your eyes until image capturing is complete.
So what I do is this. Just prior to pressing on the capture button itself, I provide the following instructions to the patient. Number one, I want the patient to stand still. Number two, starting from the throat up, I want the patient to swallow. I want the patient then to take their entire tongue and press it firmly against the roof of the mouth. And not just the tip of the tongue, but the entire tongue to close up the airspace between the surface of the tongue and roof of the mouth. I'll tell them to breathe slowly through the nose, close their eyes, and stay still. So swallow, entire tongue in the roof of the mouth, breathe through the nose, close their eyes, and then stay still. And that is it. The patient has been positioned. We provided our instructions. Now we're ready to capture our image itself. So from here, you notice on the top of the hand switch, the light is green, which tells me that we are now ready to capture image itself. As a side note, if this light is not illuminated yet, do not press down on the hand switch, otherwise you may have to start the whole positioning protocol from the beginning again. To capture image, press firmly down on the button itself. When it turns orange, that means the image is being captured. It's also important to make sure not to let go of the button until the image capture has been completed. You know it's done when the orange light will turn off, and you'll also hear an audio prompt from the imaging system itself indicating that image capture is done.
Image capturing is complete. Please wait.
Image capture completed. Now we can go over to the imaging system and fetch our patient and extract him or her from the imaging device itself. When image capture is completed, it's really important to make sure the patient does not try to exit out of the imaging system by themselves. Always make sure to instruct the patient to stay in the device until you come fetch them, or when the temporal rods open up automatically. If they don't, press on the button here in the front control panel here. The temporal rods will then open up. That will then be their instructions here where they can then remove the bicycle here and then back out of the imaging system, and image capture is completed.